Fresh starts, new beginnings, healthy communication, self-awareness, and spirituality. These are the answers that come back to me over and over again when I ask, what do you want for yourself and your family as you entered the new millennium, the year 2000? Now, I know that you've heard similar comments from your mates, friends, family, or business associates. These general answers seem to reflect the thoughts and feelings of people worldwide. It's a time for change, looking inside, and personal vulnerability. We all seem to be split between the need to be responsible and the desire for freedom and individuality. We want to improve dissatisfied living, develop better communication skills, have more fun, and move into new paths of learning. Hello, I'm Sylvia Friedman. As you can see from my biography, I have accomplished many things. But today, I'm going to talk to you about my book called The Stars in Your Family: How Astrology Can Affect Parent-Child Relationships, published in 1995 by Hay House. It's a very popular book in its fourth printing and well received across the United States. In fact, I get calls from Hawaii, Utah, Wyoming, Washington, D.C., California, and more. Juanita Jordan, wife of Michael, calls it her Bible, and it sits on her nightstand where it's easy to reach. Marilyn Miglin, cosmetic guru and healer, feels that the book has been an inspiration. In fact, anyone who reads the book believes that it's a powerful guide toward understanding as well as raising children. Each one of the 12 chapters focuses on the personality of the individual birth sign, depicting the traits, characteristics, and behavioral patterns of each child. As you read each chapter, it will feature 12 sets of parents who are, or may be, raising the child featured in the chapter. For example, the Sagittarius parent, the Virgo child, or the Aries parent, the Pisces child. The information includes parent-child compatibility, or lack of it. The foundation of the child's personality helps parents recognize the inherent insecurity within each child. Once parents begin to understand what's behind a child's lack of assurance, subject to his or her own fear or self-doubt, they learn to avoid problems that may occur without having this kind of advance notice. The book offers a special opportunity to understand how to raise children with respect to who they are, rather than based on unrealistic expectations of what you expect them to be. Many parents tell me that it's so interesting to read the description of their own birth sign and how scary it was to recognize their own relationships with their mothers and fathers in the book. They say, I wish my mom and dad had been given this kind of information and guidance when we were growing up. What is the one issue that everyone seems to agree on, from parent to politician, as we've entered the new millennium? Educating and communicating with our children. All we hear on TV is talk to your children, learn about your children, be courageous with your children. The message is out there. Our first priority must be to our children, and the time is now. The Stars in Your Family is right in line with our changing world, a powerful tool which will help parents to understand and to get to know their kids. What could be more important than a book that gives you new insights into your children's personality, characteristics, traits, and behavior, and how you can best raise them to fulfill their potential? I was inspired to write The Stars in Your Family because I honestly believe what could be more appealing than a book that could quickly get to the core of a child's personality and help parents to understand how to intelligently and intuitively interact with their children. I must repeat, we need to raise our children as to who they are rather than who we expect them to be. As we look into the faces of our children, we all know that love and caring is essential. But equally important is learning about a child's personality, talent, strengths, and limitations. If we can have the opportunity to receive powerful information about how each child thinks, feels, or behaves, there would be less confusion and less mistakes. We would be able to understand the special dynamics of building self-esteem, enhancing self-confidence, and providing a safe, secure, and loving home. As you can hear from the enclosed promotional CD, which features segments from my appearances on WJBC, WGN, WLS, WLOO, and shows across the country, listeners call in with questions such as, why do I have strong problems with one child and get along with others? Why is one child much angrier than the others? Why is one daughter so distancing and unaffectionate? Studying children over the past 20 years has given me the experience to answer these questions with the reasons for a child's behavior and offer solid solutions to the problems. Why do we get along with one child and not the others? Well, it may be that there is a natural compatibility with that child. Perhaps parent and child are on the same wavelength, while the others are very different in their behavior and needs. Of course, it's always up to the parents to make the effort to understand these differences. Why was one child angrier than the others? Well, that child could be a Taurus or a Libra, who tend to have a problem taking responsibility for their actions and blame others for their problems. They fear confrontation and tend to harbor their resentments, building their anger to a peak. Why is one child more distancing and unaffectionate? That child may be an Aquarian who is afraid of expressing feelings and intimacy. The parents in my workshops are amazed at how I quickly assess both the core of their personality and the personalities of their children. I tell them what I've learned about the response that each of the 12 personalities have to their family and the outside world. Raising healthy children begins with understanding who they are and how they will approach life. Raising healthy children is accepting that your kids can be very different than you. Raising healthy children is to have the power to recognize whether you have innate compatibility or need to work on developing compatibility. Raising healthy children is to let them know that you are human and can be vulnerable. Most of all, raising healthy children is having the courage to openly talk to them and have them talk to you. Remember, a child may be perceived as exceptionally smart and charming, but that doesn't mean he or she is personally secure. A child may be perceived as practical and organized, but that doesn't mean that he or she is personally secure. A child may be perceived as logical and objective, but that doesn't mean that he or she is personally secure. If we can concentrate and recognize our children's individual temperaments, it will tell us a lot about what we need to do to make them feel personally secure. If children are emotional and sensitive, they need a great deal of attention and affection. If they are logical and objective, they need friendship and appreciation. If they are practical and purposeful, they need to feel that their environment is safe and secure. Of course, as parents, we may be different than our children, but we need to put the child first. Even though we may not be demonstrative or attentive and have an emotional child, we need to show affection. Even though we are emotional and have a logical and objective child, we need to curb excessive emotion, chaos, and drama. If we are practical and purposeful children, we cannot expect them to express their feelings easily. But we as parents need to focus on self-expression. One's temperament is a powerful key to understanding what makes them personally secure and can be the guide toward understanding what part of our personalities can create personal insecurity in our children. Let me tell you about my own family. As I raised my own 2 children, Lane now age 38 and Alyssa now age 35, I always believed that giving them a lot of love, hugs, and kisses would be the key to obtaining their trust. Yet, I instinctively knew that if I wanted to be an intelligent mother, I needed to learn about their own individual personality and behavior. I was quite a rebel with my own mother, and I knew I had to raise my kids based on who they were and not who I expected them to be. I remember looking down into each of their cribs and thinking, what is this baby about? How would my son or my daughter approach life? Would I be compatible with either of them? Were we all very different? And how? Since I knew their formative years were so crucial to the rest of their lives, I began to read Dr. Spock and any self-help children's books that were available to me. I was ready to learn anything that could help me be the right kind of mother. As much as I read, I still felt that I needed more. I wanted my children to be able to talk about their thoughts and feelings, since my own mother did not have the knowledge or courage to speak to me that way. When I think back, it's so funny to remember those 2 little faces looking up at me, shaking their heads yes and no, when I would have what I called indoctrination sessions on drugs and alcohol. They would sit on the couch at age 8 and 5, yes, looking very bewildered, and didn't have a clue as to what drugs and alcohol were. All they both knew was that they didn't want to get sick or hurt their minds and bodies, and they didn't want the family to be sad. We had these sessions once a week until they began to recognize what I was really trying to teach them. I guess those sessions worked, as neither of my kids smoke, tried drugs, or drink very much. Those poor kids. I kept telling them that they could tell me anything or ask me any questions. I dared and shared with them, even when they were ready to lock me in a room. I don't know where people were in 1961 when my son was born, but from my own experience, hardly anybody even talked to their kids. In fact, they thought I was crazy to talk about taboo things. One thing I do know is that my kids knew I was always there to talk to them. They grew up being good people who would never hurt anyone. We all still talk about our feelings to each other, even when we don't want to. Still, with all that I tried to do, I sincerely believe that I would have made some different behavioral decisions if I had studied astrology from the very beginning of their lives. However, they were still very young when astrology entered our lives. And yet, as I began to study astrology, I was amazed at how much I was learning about my kids' personality and behavior. I was so excited. I really found a powerful, fun, educational tool and teacher. What I learned validated many of the things I knew about my son, but the information helped to clarify my own thinking. Lane was born an Aquarian, a thinker, very logical. He loved to explore and needed a lot of space and freedom. Too much emotion or disruption was far too much for him. He was sentimental, not very impressed by fancy clothes, and highly independent. He moved slowly in his own time and space. There were so many times when he just needed to be silent and do his little projects. Later on, they became bigger projects. He wanted reason, sensibility, and objectivity in his life. He could not be forced into anything. Well, I was born an Aries, extremely emotional, strong-minded, dramatic, loved to dress him in beautiful clothes, and I moved like lightning. All in all, quite chaotic. We had a great time together when I was just trying to have fun and be a good teacher, but he wanted to run away any time I got upset. It wasn't always easy for us to understand each other. In fact, I don't know how he lived through some of the beginning years. As astrology became my teacher, My children's personalities were much more defined. If I had known what my son really needed, I would have been less chaotic, had less expectations, and been much more sensible. The main concern was that his facts and my feelings were definitely not a mix. But thank goodness that intelligence, truth, and talking to each other saved the day. I am still very emotional, and he is still very logical, but it was up to me to learn how to temper my behavior and understand his. My daughter, on the other hand, was born a very charming but stubborn Taurus the bull. She was gentle, practical, very sensitive, and boy, did she need attention. She took everything personally. The tiniest look of disapproval made her angry and insecure. Therefore, my direct and straightforward approach to life was often too tough for her. In many ways, we were two peas in a pod, and very similar. But I learned through astrology that I needed to be less aggressive, concentrate on her fears, more rules-oriented, less perfection-oriented, and less overprotective. When I think about it, my true dedication in life is to love and help children. Astrology has been a wonderful tool and has taught me how to understand most human beings. The workshops I facilitate are very successful, and it doesn't matter how old their children are. Parents are always asking me to help. When I wrote The Stars in Your Family, I wanted people to benefit from the information that I offered. To give you an idea of my book, I'd like to read you a portion of 2 chapters, Aries the Ram and Virgo the Virgin. I'll begin with Aries. Chapter 1, Aries the Ram, born March 21st to April 19th. Element, fire. Key phrase, I am. Martin Luther depicted a great quote to talk about Aries. He said, "If I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, I would still plant an apple tree." The Aries personality. Some years ago, my friend Sandy and I were sitting in the park, as we did most afternoons when our children were small. On this particular day, Sandy began to talk about her 3-year-old son Alan's character flaws. Sandy asked, "Why does Alan need to take the lead with all of his friends? When he plays in the sandbox, I hear him shouting orders and giving instructions on how to build sturdy mountains and deep holes. Every time I try to help him with his puzzles, he seems impatient and bored, and he appears to have a problem finishing what he starts. I don't know why I worry so much, but there's a lot to think about when you raise a child." Well, Sandy and I had a lengthy discussion regarding the psychological meaning behind her son's behavior. Yet, if I were to talk to her about it today, 22 years later, with an extensive knowledge of astrology, I would have told her, "Sandy, I would like you to understand that Alan was born in Aries, the first sun sign in the zodiac, and he will never enjoy secondary positions. He has a gift for leadership, and it would not be wise to stifle that ability. If he gets a little bossy in the sandbox, that's when your part begins. Tell him he must be patient and tolerant of other people's feelings, even when they may not work as fast as he would like them to. Nipping his critical nature in the bud will hopefully prevent him from hurting others without realizing it. And about those puzzles, again, patience is not one of his virtues. If his interest is not piqued quickly, he will get bored and want to go on to other projects. Encourage him to finish what he starts. You must start to influence him early on. Go over each step of a project or game and show him how he can personally achieve his goal. When he reaches the last step, he will be very proud of his accomplishment." Finally, I would have told her to always stress a positive attitude with her Aries son, in addition to nurturing his independence, initiative, and originality. Although he must be taught how to temper these special qualities with patience, acceptance, and tact. When Mom feels that first kick or nudge in her stomach, that natural movement will be a silent signal to warn her that when her Aries baby comes into the world, he or she, more than any other child, will be on a continual quest for love and attention. Cold and silent treatment is a no-no. This behavior will threaten this child's idealistic and naive desire to trust. Without trust, Mr. or Ms. Aries will inwardly retreat and begin to fear verbalizing his or her personal feelings. Young Aries children are very emotional and sensitive and will immediately respond to a lack of warmth on the part of Mom and Dad. Cold behavior connotes personal criticism. The lucky parents of these children, who were born strong and internally optimistic, would be wise to follow their lead. By supporting their powerful desire and ability to go forward, parents can ensure their children's success and potential. Their boundless energy will inspire them to be involved with 10 things at a time, and they'll love every minute of life's uphill roller coaster. Aries children have an unrestrained zest for life, but they can be late bloomers when it comes to emotional maturity. Always remember that they crave an unusual amount of loving attention, personal validation, and stability in the home, even though these freedom-seeking children may leave their parents at an early age. Chapter 6. Virgo the Virgin. Born August 23rd to September 22nd. Element Earth. Key phrase, I analyze. Mark Twain had some really good information for the Virgos. I have had a lot of worries in my life, most of which have never happened. The Virgo personality. Virgos are sun signs that are synonymous with the concept of excellence, but they are usually born possessed by perfection. I truly believe that Virgos are victims of their own need to do everything right. Once they began to understand the depth of their great expectations and standards of performance, they demand too much of themselves. And these criteria will soon be projected onto other people. There are two types of Virgos. I call them the perfect Virgos and the messy Virgos. The perfect Virgos are the ones who are the most common to this sign, and they enjoy living a flawless lifestyle in all respects. They have immense powers of concentration and the ability to mentally slot everything in their lives, even people. Everything and everyone has its place. Family and home represent the safety zone, and Virgos find a great deal of pleasure entertaining and working in an environment that has been designed to satisfy their needs. They do have a tendency to dramatize all of the significant or insignificant circumstances in their lives, and can therefore look for trouble when there isn't any. Their nerves are fragile, and as each drama is pursued, a little more damage can be done to their digestive tracts. They can be perfect candidates for ulcers. Can you picture a messy Virgo? The messy Virgos set up a sense of order in their minds, but they do not physically act upon any established sequence or procedure. In fact, they are rather avant-garde. The internalized pressure of needing to be perfect seems to overwhelm and scare them. Therefore, they try and maintain a lifestyle that won't inhibit or restrain their freedom. Voila! Unusual clothing, a sloppy home, or a very messy desk at the office or studio. It really doesn't matter if they're messy, though, since they have the ability to find anything of importance, even if it's hidden under a huge pile of clothes or papers. Parents would be wise to understand the extreme amount of pressure that their Virgo children can place on themselves. I would never suggest tampering with their high intelligence or ability to be visionary in nature. But it's important to recognize that their perception of the slightest mistake will be right up there with having a flood in the kitchen. Virgo children are worrywarts, so it's important to use moderation when imposing demands upon them. Virgo children do an excellent job of criticizing their own performance, and it takes them days to forget their real or imagined errors, if they ever do. A sense of humor is essential when raising a Virgo. I know that most Virgos need to be taken seriously, but Mom and Dad will have to work on gently poking fun at the amount of dramas they seem to create for themselves. If humor becomes a part of their growing up experience, a lot of their personal pain can be alleviated. Virgo's talents for efficiency, organization, and creativity are remarkable, and they can easily earn the respect of their friends and associates. They have a tremendous capacity for pragmatically and psychologically understanding the big picture, as long as they don't focus their attention on minute details. If they can give themselves permission to eliminate their self-inflicted dramas, they could comfortably achieve great things. I believe that I have grown and learned a lot about myself throughout the years, and astrology has been a powerful mentor. I have been able to accept and understand that I have natural intuition, and my interpretation of personalities is accurate, honest, and sensitive. As we enter the new millennium, it is a perfect time to provide parents with every educational tool that will help them. Children are crying out to us. All we see is havoc and pain in the world. Parents must help their children through this turbulent time. If we can help them to believe in themselves as much as we need to believe in them, personal security will build and not stay on the back burner. I was a stage actress for 12 years, and I believe I have the expertise and talent to be the voice of these 12 informative and inspiring tapes. Parents can begin to understand their child's temperament, strengths, limitations, intellectual capacity, way of looking at the world, and talent. They will learn whether they are compatible with their child or whether they are very different. They will learn how to work on those differences. They will learn how to complement their child's personality and much more. Silence in the home does not promote self-awareness, courage, spirit, determination, and it does not offer any validation. Silence in the home will hinder a child's ability to communicate throughout his or her life. We cannot continue to criticize or judge our kids just because they are not on the same wavelength as we are. They may not think or feel as we do. We need to find out what are the things that make our children respond to us and the outside world. We cannot be frightened of talking to our kids. If we're willing to teach them, then we need to talk to them. Every human being wants to be loved and feel comfortable. It's best to start with the home and family. People will be motivated to listen to these tapes over and over again. My experience as a nationally known astrologer and teacher has shown me that people believe in my ability to motivate, inspire, and educate. I read a quote a long time ago, which was anonymous, but I never forgot it. It seemed to be so right for me. Children have more need of models than of critics.